Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're celebrating on St. Patrick's Day here. First up, a comment from Jack. He says, good morning from Florida. Well, thanks for watching in Florida, Jack. We appreciate that. If you are new to the show, the number on the bottom of the screen is the number you can text or leave a voicemail. We try to do our best to read all of your comments. There's a lot of breaking news this morning. We've got a couple of New York State issues as well. We're also going to be talking about the government shutdown or a lack thereof, Chuck Schumer, and a little bit of hot water from fellow Democrats. We're going to talk about that as well. But first, the U.S. has flown more than 250 accused migrant gang members to El Salvador, where they were sent to a notorious mega prison. Now they're saying this is in defiance of a federal judge's ruling against the Trump administration. The flights included 238 members of the Venezuelan prison gang TDA, Tren de Aragua. I never say it right. It sounds like an old car horn. Aruga, as well as at least 21 members of MS-13. Upon landing in El Salvador, the accused men were met on the tarmac by dozens of armed commandos and immediately transferred into the Terrorism Confinement Center. There's videos online you can find at the New York Post. The deportation came just hours after U.S. District Judge James Boasberg temporarily blocked the Trump administration from invoking the 18th century Alien Enemies Act to swiftly boot the gangbangers from the country without a formal hearing. 2 flights to El Salvador were in the air when the order came down, and the Trump administration decided the ruling did not apply because the planes were outside U.S. airspace, according to Axios. Now, if you recall, last month, Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with the Venezuelan president and brokered a deal in which the leader agreed to house convicted U.S. citizens or deported criminal illegal migrants of any nationality into the country's most notorious prison. With more than 15,000 prisoners, it's famous for its horrendous conditions. You've seen the pictures. It's well known to human rights groups as an overcrowded nightmare facility where brutality is rampant and inmates experience harsh treatment, many crammed into their cells nearly 24 hours a day. The food provided is minimal, consisting of only beans and pasta, and rival gang members routinely fight to the death over food and water, according to reports through the years. Now, the hard-nosed border czar, Tom Homan, praised the administration's latest rounds of deportation, saying last night 238 TDA members, along with 21 MS-13 gang members, were deported from this country, adding to the thousands of criminal aliens already deported. Under President Trump's leadership, this country is becoming safer every day. Now, the judge did block the Trump administration from implementing the Alien Enemies Act, kind of one of these activist judges, not really coming as a surprise. A federal judge expanded his ruling, temporarily blocking the Trump administration from invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 on Saturday, preventing the removal of the Venezuelan immigrants without legal status and presumed to be members of the Tren de Aragua gang. Now, again, the Trump administration defying the order is how some headlines read. This is headed to the Supreme Court, and we're going to win, a senior White House official told Axios. It's a little bit too little too late on the judge's part, is what it seems like. During an emergency hearing on Saturday, U.S. District Judge James Boasberg issued a 14-day restraining order to prevent the administration from invoking the 1789 Alien Enemies Act as justification for deporting illegal immigrants convicted of crimes without hearings. Quote, any plane containing those folks that is going to take off or is in the air needs to be returned to the United States, however that is accomplished, he wrote. However, a day later, the first flight carrying more than 250 gang members, as I mentioned, were escorted off the plane by heavily armed commandos and brought to the notorious terrorism confinement center. A second official told Axios that the administration's justification for ignoring Boasberg's order was that the ruling didn't apply because the flights were being flown over international waters and that his edict came too late to turn the planes around. Quote, very important that people understand we are not actively defying court orders. They told Axios, people at the White House told Axios. Now, who was it here? President Trump shared a video of the prisoner transport saying, these are the monsters sent into our country by crooked Joe Biden and the radical left Democrats. How dare they? Thank you to El Salvador and in particular President Bukele for your understanding of this horrible situation, which was allowed to happen to the United States because of incompetent Democratic leadership. We will not forget. Now, the White House is denying that they ignored the court order halting the deportations. The administration did not, this is from Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, said, the administration did not refuse to comply with the court order. The order, which had no lawful basis, was issued after terrorists, aliens, had already been removed from U.S. territory. A single judge in a single city cannot direct the movements of an aircraft carrier full of foreign alien terrorists who were physically expelled from U.S. soil. A distinction Leavitt made about the judge's written order and the fact she noted the migrants had left U.S. soil, but did not say when in the timeline they arrived in El Salvador. Her use of the phrase aircraft carrier is confusing, however, and the White House don't have the power to decree whether court orders are lawful. So they're presenting this in the media, presenting this as a, what would you call it, almost a threat to power, a threat to democracy as we know it. Trump is acting now and not waiting for the consequences, says CNN. The drama points to a trend. Trump is wielding huge power now. This leaves those who might constrain him, including the courts and his political opponents, to ask questions later after his actions have wrought almost almost inevitable change. The invocation of the Alien Enemies Act to speed up deportations is a significant step, as it's meant to be limited to use in wartime. So, being called a threat to democracy now over the weekend there, and we're going to get to this a little bit later on, there were a lot of Democrats talking about the need to fight back against Trump, and they're upset with Chuck Schumer, suggesting that he's not doing enough in that leadership position. We're going to be talking about that in just a moment. But the White House criticized the federal judge's attempt to halt the recent deportation flights a move that was deemed, and I quote, too late by the Central American leader. He tweeted out, too late. In a statement to Fox News, Carolyn Leavitt said the administration did not refuse to comply with a court order. The order, which had no lawful basis, was issued after terrorist aliens had already been removed from U.S. territory. The written order and the administration's actions do not conflict. Moreover, as the Supreme Court has repeatedly made clear, federal courts generally have no jurisdiction over the president's conduct of foreign affairs. His authorities under the Alien Enemies Act and his core Article 2 powers to remove foreign alien terrorists from U.S. soil and repel a declared invasion. A single judge in a single city cannot direct the movements of an aircraft carrier full of foreign alien terrorists who are physically expelled from U.S. soil. So there's a quick update. Now, Marco Rubio and the leader of El Salvador celebrating the deportations. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said, "We have sent 2 dangerous top MS-13 leaders plus 21 of its most wanted back to face justice in El Salvador. Also, as promised by the president, we sent over 250 alien enemy members of Tre de Aruga, which El Salvador have agreed to hold in their very good jails at a fair price that will also save our taxpayer dollars. President Nayib Bukele is not only the strongest security leader in our region, he's also a great friend of the United States. Thank you." So that is your quick update. That's the big story this morning. Trump again, just to reiterate here, Trump again saying to the president of El Salvador, "We will not forget." Now, there's a few pieces, even from conservative outlets, pushing back on this, and we're going to talk about that when we come back. We do have a lot of other issues, some strange ones to get to. We're going to talk about the Democrat Party in general. If you look at the recent polling, Democrats have hit one of their lowest points ever, and Trump hitting one of his highest points ever. We're going to be talking about that as well. We do have some of the things going on with Doge. Oh, and a little bit later on in the program, we're going to make sure that we show you some pictures. If you missed it, you missed a blast at the Moose Club in Gang Mills. So it's the Corning Moose Lodge. But for Wienerville, well, we got some pictures from that, and it was a fun time had by all. And thank you to everybody who came up, said hi. I do appreciate it. We're going to show you some of those pictures in a little bit. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in, and we're going to take a short break. And we'll be back to talk a little bit more about the deportation of the illegal immigrants to that Venezuelan prison. There are, like I said, a few articles of pushback on that. Also, a couple of other quick updates, a few New York state issues coming up. Thanks for joining us on St. Patrick's Day. We'll be right back. Oh, don't forget, just quickly, tomorrow there will be no Frankly Speaking. There's going to be a baseball game. The baseball game is, I think, coming from Tokyo, so that's why there's the odd time frame on it at 6 in the morning. So there'll be no new Frankly Speaking tomorrow, but we'll be back on Wednesday. So get all your comments in today. All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Tune in to early morning broadcast. Catch our 5 and 5:30 a.m. Big Fox Morning News on WYDC, or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Hot Tubs, tubs. Hesselson's final hot tub blowout weekend sale at their Arnhem Mall locations this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with unbelievable deals. No reasonable offer refused. Everything must go. Savings up to $5,000 and hot tubs starting just $39.99. Plus, free Bluetooth music, free chemicals, free standard delivery and takeaway rolled hot tub, and 0% interest-free financing options up to 5 full years. 3 days only, this weekend only. Hesselson's Arnhem Mall location. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app. Your teams, your highlights, your scores. Get more of what you want. To the end zone. Stream your teams live. It's free with your pay TV subscription.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. And as I mentioned, with tomorrow's program being preempted, I wanted to give you a little information on that. That's the LA Dodgers, well, technically at the Chicago Cubs, but it's technically in Tokyo, Japan. That is why the game kicks off tomorrow at 6:10 a.m. So don't do too much celebration on St. Patrick's Day. Make sure you get up at 6 and watch the Dodgers at the Cubs live from Tokyo. All right, comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Mark? Oh, this is Mark. I have no electricity. It's been out for over 12 hours. Can't watch you today, but have a great day. Well, thank you, Mark. I guess you're not going to see this, but I appreciate it, and good luck with your electricity. I know those storms were pretty bad yesterday. All right, so a GOP representative and Elon Musk are pushing to impeach the judge who scuttled Trump's order to deport Venezuelan gang members. Shortly after the judge's temporary order was issued, Representative Brandon Gill from Texas announced plans to file articles of impeachment against the judge, with Musk responding necessary after the representative posted it. Now we know all about what happened. We've been talking about the actual time frame. But the order from the judge was already too little, too late, as the illegal immigrants were in the air. Gill, who's a freshman congressman who recently championed a petition to deport Representative Ilhan Omar, despite her being an American citizen, introduced legislation to put Trump's face on the $100 bill. So this guy's been very active in his short time in Congress. Back in January, Trump, well, we don't have to go through all that part of it, but facing, that judge now facing impeachment. Now, where was it? Okay, here it is. The New York, being supported by Elon Musk as well, but the New York Post editorial board, and I'd love your thoughts on this, said Elon Musk is way out of his lane in cheering a bid to impeach federal judge James Boasberg, who's put a temporary hold on deportation flights of illegal migrant gang members. We like the idea of the flights, writes the New York Post. The brutes of TDA and MS-13 have had it too easy for far too long, and current efforts to get tough are a necessary correction to Biden-era denial. President Donald Trump's executive orders declaring multiple gangs to be terrorist outfits are rooted in the gangs' tactics and goals. They're utterly vicious in their attempts to take turf inside our country, from Long Island to Colorado and beyond. Simply deporting them hasn't proved enough. Multiple members have slipped back in multiple times, and while Trump has stopped the mass illegal border jumping of the Biden years, the gangs have the resources and sophistication to keep getting their people through. And once here, they can not only hide among the 10 million illegal migrants admitted these last 4 years, they're shielded by the left's sanctuary laws and immigration advocacy networks. But the rule of law must hold. As legal authority for its action, Team Trump is citing the 18th Century Alien Enemies Act, a law written to cover wartime situations that in the past has only been invoked during wars declared by Congress. Quote, the war here is simply Trump's presidential declaration that TDA is invading the country, challenging that in court is perfectly kosher, as is the judge ordering a hold-off on new flights until he can hear arguments in the case. Note that the administration did not defy Boasberg by letting the first 2 flights land in Honduras and El Salvador. While the judge made comments in court about calling the planes back, his final written order left that out. And however Boasberg ultimately rules, the case seems destined to go all the way to the Supreme Court. Can the feds simply declare anyone a TDA member before putting him on a plane off to El Salvador's prisons? Which makes it plain silly for Musk to tweet necessary of a Texas representative's plan to file impeachment orders on the judge. It's nothing of the kind, and cheering it only makes Musk look reckless, a reputation he doesn't need when many Doge actions already face court challenges. Look, the Biden crew took years to get the nation fully into this mess and built an Obama era and earlier mistakes too, The Trump team cannot possibly fix everything overnight. The country needs the courts to sort out a host of legal questions about everything from what advocates insist are illegal migrants' rights to local obligations to cooperate with federal law enforcement. Trump stopped the bleeding at the border in his first weeks in office. Undoing all the Biden-era damage will take a lot longer, and doing it with full regard for the rule of law is necessary. So the New York Post suggesting, and I quote, sorry, Elon, even deporting illegal gangbangers must heed the rule of law. So your thought on that? We're going to get away from that. We do have some New York State updates. I got a couple of oddball updates we're going to get to here, breaking news stories. As I said, we're going to show you some pictures from the Corning Moose Lodge from Wienerville on Saturday, which was a blast had by all. That'll be coming up in a little bit. As I mentioned, we also have a few things here about Doge, about the Trump administration in general, but there is a lot of anger geared towards Chuck Schumer after avoiding the government shutdown. Some people saying his decision was necessary, others saying that it shows his time is through and that he should move on. We're going to be talking about that as well. But let's take a short break. Keep those waves, keep those comments coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
It's hard to explain what this feels like. Moving piles of earth, towing up to 4,000 pounds, cutting millions of blades of grass. We could keep trying to put it into words, but nothing compares to experiencing it for yourself. You just have to get in the seat.
Right now, get 0% financing for 60 months and save up to $1,000 on select John Deere compact tractors from Lindsay Equipment.
I invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife, Catherine.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. We have, a very lengthy text from Ken. Ken wrote in. And by the way, Ken, talking with so many people at the Moose Club, you've got a fan club going. You got a lot of people that look forward to your recap of the Sunday morning shows. And that's what we're going to do right now. This coming from Ken. I apologize for the length of this text. I've never been known for my brevity. Unfortunately, I yet again followed the flocks of sheeple, herded by the legacy media talking heads to the Sunday shows. Just to explain why I do this, I believe that if Republicans and Democrats don't listen to what the other side is saying, there is no way to cut through the chaff and get to the truth. To get to the truth. On Meet the Depressed, they showed polls that have Trump's ratings below all other presidents at this point in their term, which we know is not factually accurate. There's a couple polls we'll get to later on, but yes, thank you. Scott Bessent, Secretary of the Treasury, discussed the economy. Welker tried, without luck, to get him to say Trump's policies and tariffs are raising prices and could lead to a recession. He noted that the Biden administration was heading the U.S. into a financial crisis. Democrat Senator Chris Murphy said the Trump administration and Republicans are corrupt, the most insidious administration ever, unconstitutional, anti-American, and that they refuse to negotiate with the Democrats on the continuing resolution. He said the Democrats have low ratings because the people want them to fight harder against Trump and the Republicans, which, by the way, you're right, Ken. That's one of the talking points we're going to get to a little bit later on. But the reason they're so unpopular is because they're just not fighting hard enough against Trump. What the sheeple heard was everyone needs to be afraid. The sky is falling, and don't believe your lying eyes. The panel did their usual job of explaining how bad Trump and the Republicans are. 6 weeks in office, and Trump still hasn't brought prices down. Isn't that amazing? So frustrating. After 4 years of non-coverage of the Biden administration and their failures, now it's been 6 weeks, and prices haven't plummeted. But if you're just joining us, Ken did all the homework that we didn't want to do and watch the Sunday program. So we'll continue here. Trump, Musk, and the Republicans are working to help themselves instead of the American people. Sarah Fagan, the token Republican on the panel, feigned support for the Trump administration, but fell short of any real support for Trump or the Republicans. On This Week with George Stephanopoulos, hosted by Martha Raddatz, Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, discussed the military strikes on the Houthis for disrupting shipping in the region and the president's warning to Iran on stopping the funding of the terrorist organization. Martha tried to cast dispersions on Trump's attempts at the Ukrainian ceasefire talks. As usual, she fell short of the mark. Democrat Senator Sheldon Whitehouse discussed why he voted no on the CR. He said that the Republicans and the MAGA extremists wanted the shutdown so they could blame the Democrats. But he thought that the Democrats could put the blame where it belonged, on Trump, instead of the Democrats. He said that everyone needs to realize the Democrats are in a fight to save democracy. Martha didn't push back at all. Yeah, isn't that amazing? No fact-checking during that. I didn't watch the panel due to the overlap with Deface the Nation and This Week with George Stephanopoulos. Never mind. I'll move on. On Deface the Nation with Margaret Brennan, Secretary of State Marco Rubio discussed the attacks on the Houthis, saying the U.S. will keep up the mission until the Houthis can no longer attack shipping in the region, and he justified the president's message to Iran on stopping the funding of the Houthis and stopping their work toward a nuclear weapon. He discussed the tariffs and the reasoning behind imposing them, primarily for free and fair trade and bringing back manufacturing to America. Margaret tried to cast dispersions on the Trump administration trying to deport a student. Again, Marco schooled her with the actual facts and reasoned behind the decision to deport this student or anyone in a similar situation. Being overmatched by Marco, Margaret went quietly into the night. Steve Witkoff, U.S. Special Envoy in the Middle East, discussed the Ukrainian ceasefire talks. Margaret tried, fruitlessly, to trip him up on the peace talk discussion. Lindsey Graham discussed Iran's desire for a nuclear bomb and the Ukrainian-Russian ceasefire. Margaret tried to get Lindsey to say Trump is personally using government power to go after private law firms for prosecuting him. Lindsey said that Trump was justified in eliminating their security clearances due to their efforts to assist the Biden DOJ in the political prosecution of Trump. Democrat Representative Deborah Dingell agreed the tariffs are a necessary tool in the toolbox, but that Trump is going too far. She is saying that the steel and aluminum tariffs are going to substantially raise auto prices. She said the people want their representatives to fight back against Trump and the Republican overreach. That is a common theme now. The Democrat governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, said the tariffs are already hurting his state. He is also working to bolster his state's resources to fill the gap left by FEMA cuts. He continued to state that Trump doesn't have the authority to do the things he is doing. Trump is not a king. All three shows didn't fail to work as hard as possible to paint Trump and the Republicans as bad for the nation and the Democrats as the nation's savior of democracy. It is no wonder that the nation is so divided due to the messaging that half of them hear from the legacy media. Thank you, Ken, for the recap. Yeah, there's no surprise that we're so divided. It's also no surprise that there's so much anger against Trump and Trump supporters by the left, because if you watch these things, no wonder there's so much anger, and that leads into this. A Minnesota Republican, well, it's actually a group of Minnesota Republican lawmakers, plan to propose legislation requiring that the state, Minnesota, include, quote, Trump derangement syndrome under its definitions of mental illness. 5 GOP lawmakers are set to introduce the bill in the state's Senate today and refer it to the Health and Human Services Committee. The bill aims to specifically add, quote, Trump derangement syndrome to the state's definition of mental illness. This is what the bill says. Trump derangement syndrome is defined as acute onset of paranoia in otherwise normal persons that is in reaction to the policies of President Donald J. Trump. Symptoms may include Trump-induced general hysteria, which produces an inability to distinguish between legitimate policy differences and signs of psychic pathology in President Donald J. Trump's behavior. Now, there is a split in the state legislature, so the bill is unlikely to pass or be approved. Mental illness is defined as a disorder or other issue that is included in a diagnostic code list. Trump derangement syndrome is not recognized as a mental illness anywhere. So 5 GOP lawmakers in Minnesota introduced a bill defining Trump derangement syndrome as a mental illness. But to tie into what Ken said, the media is trying to divide us, but they've lost all credibility. That's what's so frustrating, because you mentioned it, and we've talked about it on the program. You know, there's only fact-checking one way. And that was admitted even during the debate. I believe it was ABC, wasn't it? That was bragging on the fact that they studied and practiced fact-checking President Trump, but not Kamala Harris. Speaking of President Trump, we're going through a lot of things here. I told you we had a couple weird ones here. President Trump won the golf championship at the club in Palm Beach County. The president announced his victory on Truth Social yesterday, saying, "I just won the golf club championship, probably my last, at Trump International Golf Club in Palm Beach County, Florida. Such a great honor. The awards dinner is tonight at the club. I want to thank the wonderful golf staff and all the many fantastic golfers that participated in the event. Such fun." As noted by Fox News, the golf victory came a day after the White House shared photos of the president dressed in golf attire as he watched strikes on Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen. Quote, President Trump is taking action against the Houthis to defend U.S. shipping assets and deter terrorist threats. For too long, American economic and national threats have been under assault by the Houthis, not under this presidency. And we have a few things we can talk about that when it comes to the Houthis. Maybe we'll talk about that when we come back, because that was a big topic over the weekend. U.S. military shoots down Houthi drones as Trump's strike against the terrorist group continues. That happened late last night. U.S. warships have shot down roughly a dozen Houthi drones since President Trump's launched airstrikes against the terrorist organization on Saturday. The drones were aimed at the U.S. Navy's Truman Carrier Strike Group and were shot down well before they posed a serious threat. The latest military action came after nearly a year and a half of attacks from Houthis, both on commercial merchant vessels and U.S. military ships. In a Truth Social post on Saturday, Trump wrote that he had ordered the United States military to launch decisive and powerful military action against the Houthi terrorists in Yemen. Quote, "It has been over a year since a U.S.-flagged commercial ship safely sailed through the Suez Canal, the Red Sea, or the Gulf of Aden. The last American warship to go through the Red Sea 4 months ago was attacked by the Houthis over a dozen times." He wrote that the relentless assaults have cost the U.S. and world economy many billions of dollars, while at the same time putting innocent lives at risk. "To all Houthi terrorists," said the president, "your time is up and your attacks must stop starting today. If they don't, heck," he didn't say that, "will rain down upon you like nothing you have ever seen before." So there's well, we'll talk a little bit more about this. I realize I'm running late. Boy, this program's moving fast this morning. As I mentioned, we're going to have some great photos from the Moose Club over the weekend as they celebrate in Wienerville. Great food, great time had by all. Oh, if you went to the Hornell St. Patrick's Day Parade, I'd love to see some pictures from that as well. I'd love to hear how much fun that was. And what else we got? Yeah, we got a lot we're going to cover. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
When it comes to best subs, wings, strombolis, and calzones, nobody does it better than Picnic Pizza. Picnic Pizza has been serving the Twin Tiers for over 40 years. With 2 convenient locations to serve you, Horseheads and Big Flats, you can dine in, carry out, or we'll deliver in a 5-mile radius. We offer everyday in-house specials like a family pack, 1 large pizza, 1 dozen wings, and 1 quart of soda. Having a party? How about a party pack? 1 sheet pizza, 2 dozen wings, and 2 quarts of soda. Picnic Pizza, the best darn pizza in the area.
The smooth taste of Bradley Street Coffee. The aroma alone can transport you to your happy place. So why not share the feeling? Pick up a multi-pack and share the bold, distinctive taste of Bradley Street Coffee. Exclusively at Quick Fill.
Tune in to our early morning broadcast. Catch our 5 and 5:30 a.m. Big Fox Morning News on WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Now is the best. Purchase your swing pool at Hustleson's at our annual spring pool sale and get on the installation list early. Save $500 to $1,000 in every 2025 installed gold or diamond pool package. Have Hustleson's expert installation crews install it for you or do it yourself. Either way, the warranty is the same and enjoy the savings. Hustleson's also offers 0% interest financing options up to 5 years. Save on chlorine tablets, solar covers, steps, electric pool cleaners, and more. This spring pool sale will end March 31st, so come in early for the best selection. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hustleson's.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So Pete Hegseth vowed unrelenting campaign against the Houthi targets, saying peace through strength is back. The minute the Houthis say we'll stop shooting at your ships, we'll stop shooting at your drones, he said. This campaign will end, but until then, it will be unrelenting. This was on Sunday Morning Futures with host Maria Bartiromo. U.S. Central Command said Saturday it had initiated a series of operations, consisting of precision strikes against Iran-backed Houthi targets across Yemen to defend American interests, deter enemies, and restore freedom of navigation. President Donald Trump wrote in a Truth Social post on Saturday that he had ordered the United States military to launch decisive and powerful military action against the Houthi terrorists in Yemen. Hegseth sought to make very clear that the ongoing campaign is about freedom of navigation and restoring deterrence. An era of peace through strength is back, he stated. We're sitting on 4 years of deferred maintenance from Joe Biden, where when you talk about the Houthis, they were allowed over 100 times to shoot at U.S. ships, to shoot at commercial shipping. 4 months ago, when we sent a ship through, it was shot at 17 times. Ships haven't been able to go through for over a year without being shot at. He called freedom of navigation a core national interest, reiterating Trump's vow to restore that freedom and be unrelenting in doing so. Now, Houthis have vowed to escalate the situation. The leader of the terrorist organization announced a new campaign, quote, against American and Israeli oppression in an unhinged speech on Sunday, threatened to escalate against American military assets in the Middle East, saying the head of the Houthi terrorist organization governing most of Yemen was responding to an airstrike campaign against his group that President Donald Trump announced on Saturday. In a message published on his social media outlet, Trump said he approved aerial attacks on the terrorist bases, leaders, and missile defenses. So during his remarks, the Houthi leader, according to a translation by the Iranian propaganda outlet Press TV, said that Trump's airstrikes were a failure and that they had inspired the Houthis to engage in more jihadist violence, saying our armed forces had begun responding to the American aggression. This is our choice, our decision, and our direction, as long as the American aggression on our country continues. The aircraft carrier and American warships will be targets for us, and the navigation ban will include the Americans as long as they persist in their aggression. So there you are. Okay. Now, there's a lot to discuss. We are going to talk about really the attacks on Chuck Schumer. There are a couple of opinion pieces I want to get your opinion on. Some defending Chuck Schumer, some calling for him to step down from that leadership position. We have quickly a couple of New York issues we'll get to after the next break. And then we're going to talk, there's some more updates on the auto pen. We brought that story to you, I believe it was last week, where it turns out President Biden, was using the auto pen, and now some speculate that maybe some of his staff members misused the auto pen, maybe even suggesting signing some bills and some various documents that he may not have been aware of. I think it was the Trump administration who specifically pointed to the pardons of Liz Cheney and others that may not have actually been supported or may not be legal because they were signed with the auto pen, and questions because of Biden's mental health, of whether or not he knew what he was signing with that auto pen. So we have a couple of stories on that as well, and who knows, Doge is always a story. And we're going to show you those pictures from the Moose Club Wienerville event on Saturday, where the money went to benefit the Salvation Army of Corning. But we have to take a short break. Hard to believe. Also, don't forget, we have that Eagle's Nest camera up on WYDCTV.com. If you haven't had an opportunity to check it out, please feel free to do so. I think you'll enjoy it. You get kind of lost watching it, lost in almost like the Yule log. Something to kind of just zone out on and relax and watch the Eagle's Nest. All right, we've got to take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
It's spring, and bath Planet has one question for you. Do you feel lucky? Well, do ya? Bath Planet is excited to announce the Dream Bath Giveaway 5. In the past 2 years, we have given away 4 brand new Dream Baths, and now it's your turn. The winner will be able to design their own bath or shower, complete with hundreds of color and pattern options, multiple shelf styles, and matching safety features. It's the Dream Bath Giveaway 5. Enter now by scanning the QR code or stopping by either of our 2 locations.
One of the I like most about being a mortgage loan officer is helping people make dreams come true.
The most satisfying part is seeing people succeed in accomplishing the purchase of a home.
Whether it's refinancing for a lower monthly payment, a lower interest rate, or to tap in your home's equity.
Whether you're buying your first home or looking to refinance, First Heritage will be here to help.
My name is Cindy.
My name is Tracy.
My name is Peter.
My name is Deb.
We are here to guide you.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDC TV. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street. By the way, as an update, a SpaceX crew arrived at the International Space Station early yesterday morning with 2 new NASA astronauts, a Japanese astronaut and a Russian cosmonaut, clearing the way for Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams to head home, perhaps later this week. NASA insists that the pair has not been stranded this whole time, but insisted that they were intentionally kept hanging for technical and budgetary reasons. Now, they had been there for they were supposed to be there 8 or 9 days. They've been there for 9 months. So that's an update. I'm sure we'll watch that video as they return home, and it'll be quite a news story. Okay, how about this? This is an interesting one before we get into New York State issues. A French parliament member is demanding that the United States return the Statue of Liberty, claiming America has lost its way and no longer stands for what the iconic sculpture represents. So this is the left-leaning French leader, parliament member, Raphael Glucksmann, saying, "We're going to say to the Americans who have chosen to side with the tyrants, to the Americans who fired researchers for demanding scientific freedom, give us back the Statue of Liberty," he said in a piece to the French newspaper Le Monde. "We gave it to you as a gift, but apparently you despise it. So it'll be just fine here at home." Now, Glucksmann is a major booster of the Ukrainian war and has sharply criticized President Trump for aggressively seeking to pull back on U.S. support for the effort. He also has been a vocal opponent of Trump reducing funding for colleges and research institutions. Quote, "The second thing we're going to say to the Americans is, if you want to fire your best researchers, if you want to fire all the people who, through their freedom and their sense of innovation, their taste for doubt and research, have made your country the world's leading power, then we're going to welcome them." He criticized right-wing members of France's parliament, whom he called a fan club for Trump, as well as Tesla's CEO, Elon Musk, who has taken on a highly visible role in the administration. All right, so there you go. A French parliament member, Raphael Glucksmann, wants the Statue of Liberty back. We'll end this segment on that note. Now, we do have a couple of, I think, interesting updates about New York, but I really want to get into Chuck Schumer and the push to oust Chuck Schumer from that leadership position. He is receiving a lot of pushback over his support, and obviously it passed which was the continuing resolution, the CR bill that we talked so much about last week. It did pass. President Trump signed it into law just the other day. But Chuck Schumer doing a complete 180 last week, receiving a lot of criticism from his party for doing so. You have members like AOC who are hypercritical of Chuck Schumer right now, and some are asking her to challenge Chuck Schumer for Senate. So we're going to talk a little bit about him later on. What else do we have here? Well, we got a lot. So let's take a short break, wrap up hour number 1 when we come back. Boy, we're moving fast this morning. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in, because as I said, tomorrow there will be no live, frankly speaking. Tomorrow is the opening game of the baseball season, but then it takes like a weird couple week break. So it's kind of like a soft opening to the baseball season tomorrow. Then it kicks off again on the 27th. But tomorrow is the Cubs and the Dodgers, and they're playing from the Tokyo Dome in Tokyo, Japan. So the first pitch right around 6:10 a.m. So a.m. So there will not be a Frankly Speaking tomorrow. We're going to cede to Major League Baseball and play that exciting game, Dodgers and Cubs. So don't overdo it today on St. Patrick's Day, or you'll miss all the baseball action at 6 a.m. All right, let's take that short break, and then we'll wrap up hour number 1. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in, and we'll be right back.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Tune in to early morning broadcast. Catch our 5 and 5:30 a.m. Big Fox Morning News on WYDC, or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here. With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime. Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. What a beautiful view of historic Marcus Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. All right. A couple of New York State issues. Like I said, in the next hour, I'll show you some pictures from the Moose Club over the weekend. This is interesting. I saw this morning, and it's not necessarily breaking news. It came out yesterday, but it's on Empire Report. And it says more than 2,000 state corrections officers who were fired after being accused of declining to return to work at the end of an illegal strike included dozens of employees. Oh, there we go. Dozens of employees who were injured, sick, on family medical leave, and in at least one case, pregnant. Now, if you think of what Doge is doing, I know, bear with me here while I'm comparing the two. What Doge is doing, what does the media run with? The media runs with the saddest story of someone being laid off, or the veteran who was laid off with Doge's attempt to cut bureaucracy. In the media in New York, they haven't really covered the correction officer strike, and if they did, it was pretty pro Governor Hochul. Now imagine Governor Hochul standing strong, standing very strong against the corrections officers. But now we learn, and the media, I'm glad the media is reporting on this, even if it's just a little bit, that many of the employees that were fired, the corrections officers that were fired, were, quote, injured, sick, on family medical leave, and in at least one case, pregnant. Many of those officers are pursuing grievances, seeking reinstatement to their positions, as well as the restoration of their health insurance coverage. So think about that. One correction officer pregnant, and Governor Hochul, in her vindictiveness, taking away the health insurance of the former corrections officers and their family. In a process that involves both the State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision and the New York State Corrections Officers and Police Benevolent Association, the union representing about 13,000 corrections officers. Jerry Cottrell, a mother of two young girls who had been a corrections officer at Auburn Correctional Facility, left work in February due to a hip injury that she said required her to provide the department with a doctor's note within 30 days. But before the clock ran out, Cottrell said she was called back to work and fired on March 11th, 2 weeks before she is scheduled to give birth to a son. Her husband, who is also a corrections officer, resigned in protest after his wife was terminated, but has since returned to work in part, Cottrell says, because they need to support their family. They, like thousands of other corrections officers, also were told their health insurance was canceled. I wasn't actively on the strike line or anything because I'm crippled and due in 12 days and have two kids at home anyway. But my husband was actively striking because everything in the prison it's just absolute shambles. She said her husband had participated in the strike and that she supported him because of the unsafe working conditions in the facilities that have been building for years. Officers have also been mandated to work mandatory shifts of 16 to 24 hours, sometimes longer, by the way, and were being prohibited from taking regularly scheduled days off. There also have been a surge in assaults in prisons, and the correctional union has attributed that in part to a law prohibiting long-term solitary confinement, the HALT Act. And we've talked about those numbers numerous times on this program, the surge in not just inmate on inmate assaults, but inmate on staff assaults as well. So, as an update, pregnant and fired. Many corrections officers were on medical leave. They do not have a specific number in this post at the Times Union. But it does say here, the return of those roughly, how am I doing on time? Okay. The return of those roughly 5,000 officers put the state's correctional workforce at about 10,000, which includes sergeants, but it's still about 4,000 officers short of the staffing level in place before the strike began on February the 17th. So there you go. Enough on that. But just an interesting update. All right, keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. A little quiet this morning. That's all right. I understand. I hope you're having a great St. Patrick's Day. I want to thank you for joining us. Our number one is in the books. It's hard to believe how quickly this program goes. Can you imagine? It was just 2 years ago. We celebrated our 2-year anniversary on Thursday. That this program was 1 hour. I don't know how we did it. I don't know how much I must have had to skip back then because we have a lot to cover, and I think you're going to find it very interesting when it comes to what these liberal groups and liberal politicians are saying about Chuck Schumer. We're going to talk about that. Also about the Democrat Party in general, polling showing them at historic lows. Now, some Democrats on the Sunday shows and just in general have been saying, well, their poll numbers are so low because they're not fighting back enough against Trump. I don't know if I would agree with that assessment. I don't think that's why their polling is so low. I think if you watched the speech to the joint sessions, you would see why the Democrats' favorability ratings are so low, acting very childlike. Like a child that did not get their way. did not do themselves any services there, any help there. Got a couple comments coming in. We'll read it at the top of the hour. And as I said, we will be showing you photos from the Moose Club's Wienerville celebration, which was Saturday to benefit the Salvation Army of Corning. So stay with us. Hour number 2, mere moments away.
Hot tubs, hot tubs, hot tubs. Hesselson's final hot tub blowout weekend sale at their Arnhem locations this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with unbelievable deals. No reasonable offer refused. Everything must go. Savings up to $5,000 and hot tubs starting just $39.99. Plus, free Bluetooth music, free chemicals, free standard delivery and takeaway rolled hot tub, and 0% interest-free financing options up to 5 full years. 3 days only, this weekend only. Hesselson's Arnhem location. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife, Catherine.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. A comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Tell France to come and get it. I like it. And that's in reference to that parliament member in France saying that they want the Statue of Liberty back. So tell France to come and get it. Thank you. A couple of quick things here about New York State issues, and then we want to talk about Chuck Schumer. But mayoral candidate and then Governor Andrew Cuomo used heavy-handed tactics and secretiveness with Big Apple officials as the city struggled to contain the deadly COVID pandemic, according to a new study. Ex-Mayor Bill de Blasio also gets dinged in the report. Coordination challenges between Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio's administrations impeded city-state collaboration and contributed to duplicative work, inconsistent recommendations, and a loss of trust from New Yorkers, says the COVID-19 response review report covering January 2020 to July of 2022. The analysis was prepared by city agencies, notably the Health Department, Office of Emergency Management, and Health and Hospitals, serving under Cuomo's now mayoral foe, Eric Adams. Cuomo was accused in the report of big-footing City Hall and unnecessarily micromanaging the city's response. The Cuomo administration was reluctant to share data with the city and often refused to give advance warning of policy changes and new directives, the study said. So more failure during the pandemic. Of course, Cuomo making perhaps one of the worst decisions in political history by allowing COVID-positive patients to be put in nursing homes with our most vulnerable population. But according to Karen DeWitt, and this was on the Empire Report this morning, quote, Mayor Cuomo might not be so bad after all. New York City needs someone who can stand up to Trump. For all his flaws, Cuomo might be that guy. Now, why does the city need someone that will stand up against Trump? You need someone that will stand up against Governor Kathy Hochul and the terrible decisions she is making. Now, Karen DeWitt is a former Capitol Bureau Chief for New York State Public Radio, so keep that in mind. saying Andrew Cuomo appears to be steamrolling his way to becoming New York's next mayor. And during this surreal and unbelievably fraught time, as an oligarch burns down the federal government, the president mounts a trade war with Canada, and a U.S. health secretary recommends cod liver oil instead of vaccines to stem a measles outbreak that might not be such a terrible thing, meaning Andrew Cuomo coming back as mayor. Now, she goes through and gives her whole history because that's what media people like to do, pat themselves on the back. But Cuomo dropped out. I don't want to get into her whole history here. But it says, so why 3.5 years later do I find that I am not completely opposed to the idea of Mayor Cuomo? While polling and logic suggests incumbent Eric Adams is doomed as he seeks re-election, there are some solid progressive Democrats running in the mayoral primary, including two I covered in Albany. Yes, of course, it's all about her career. State Senators Jessica Ramos and Zelnor Murray. But they seem likely to be eaten alive by Donald Trump and Elon Musk, who are set on slashing spending to vital programs and punishing New York. The city has in the past gravitated to flawed men who rise to the challenge of a disaster. Just ask Rudy Giuliani, who became a revered national leader after the 9/11 attacks. Cuomo was also at his best during the early months of the pandemic when his daily televised briefings offered a leadership contrast to the chaos in the Trump administration. He even won an Emmy, which was taken away the following year. Then, as now, a portion of the public seems to be craving a traditional paternal figure to lead them. A Cuomo mayor would appeal to centrists. As governor, he disdained the left of his party as ideologues and pointed to his achievements of same-sex marriage as proof of his ability to get things done. And with progressives in the wilderness, Cuomo may be the best equipped to fight even harder against the far right and become a successful counterforce to Trump. You might be asking how I, as a woman, as a member of the generation that kicked down doors for women in the media, can even contemplate this, writes Karen DeWitt. There are still several women out there who say that the former governor sexually harassed them. Would voting for Cuomo be a betrayal of those women? Maybe. The allegations against the former governor, which have not been proven yet, are not of the same magnitude as the messy sexual behavior, or sexual history, of Trump's choice for defense secretary Pete Hegseth, or of the president himself. These are dire times. Democracy itself is at risk. So perhaps it comes down to an uncomfortable choice of moralism or pragmatism. As a retired reporter, I don't have a significant part to play in what could be Andrew Cuomo's third act. But when New York City's Democrats make their decision in the primary 3 months from now, you could be sure I'll be in the audience. So Karen DeWitt, boy, twisting herself up into a pretzel to defend her position of supporting former Governor Cuomo and his run for mayor. Okay, let's talk about Chuck Schumer. Your thoughts on this? The calls from the left to oust Chuck Schumer from his leadership position. There was a lot of talks of it over the weekend, and this is in reference to his doing a U-turn and supporting the continuing resolution. Some saying that was his finest hour. Others saying that disqualifies him from a leadership position. We also have a couple other things here about the Democrat Party in general. But a liberal Democratic group called Indivisible, you may have heard of them, very heavy in the kind of the protest scene, said Saturday it was calling for Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer to step down from his leadership role. Now, this is the latest fallout after he backed a GOP bill, that continuing resolution to keep the government open. The group's call is the latest sign of just how much Schumer's decision to vote for Republican bill Friday has angered a Democratic grassroots itching for a fight with President Trump. And that's kind of the political talking point right now that the reason Democrats are so unpopular is because they're just not fighting back against Trump enough. And why is it always a Democrat grassroots? They always throw around grassroots. Just like they're trying to suggest there's a grassroots movement to have various representatives hold in-person town hall meetings, and we know it's more about the astroturfing. It's more about getting that video that the media can use to suggest, and I saw it on Friday on ABC News, the national scene, where they were saying conservative Republican congressperson attacked for his positions on Trump by his constituents. But we continue. Many Democrats saw a potential government shutdown as one of the party's sole points of leverage on the government funding bill, as Trump and Elon Musk have moved to shutter programs and cancel spending previously allocated by Congress. But Schumer and a handful of Democrats aligned with him argued doing so would only give the pair more power, and that the consequences of a shutdown would be worse than the bill. Schumer's decision roiled Democrats, who noted the party had been near united in the House in opposing it. Hakeem Jeffries deflected Friday when asked whether he had lost confidence in Schumer. Did you see that? That press conference? Hakeem Jeffries just doesn't quite have it. But it was, when he was asked, do you still have any kind of faith in Chuck Schumer? It was next question. But the statement from Indivisible, which launched during Trump's first administration, is a sign that the anger among Democrats extends beyond the halls of Congress. In a Saturday release, Indivisible said 82% of its leaders in New York and 91% nationwide had voted to call for Schumer to step aside. Quote, after weeks of constituents demanding that Democrats use this rare, precious point of leverage on the government funding bill, Schumer did the opposite, said Ezra Levin, the group's co-executive director. He led the charge to wave the white flag of surrender. But Indivisible has no intention of surrendering to Trump, Musk, and congressional Republicans. Now, a Schumer spokesperson did not immediately respond to Politico when asked for a comment. Now, he did acknowledge on Thursday that he had made a tough choice, adding, you have to make these decisions based on what is best for not only your party, but your country. And I firmly believe, and I always have, that I've made the right decision. So the far left group, Indivisible, and many others, we're going to talk about this when we come back, calling for Chuck Schumer to step down from that leadership position. But we've got to take a short break. A couple waves coming in. When we come back, we'll show you some photos from Saturday's Wienerville event at the Moose Lodge, number 274. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Tune in to our early morning broadcast. Catch our 5 and 5:30 a.m. Big Fox Morning News on WYDC, or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Every day, Ebony K. Williams presides.
Untrue, Your Honor.
What, you're going to have your turn.
Is another day when right prevails over wrong.
I can tell what happened to you, sir, because I was born at night, not last night. The only thing that matters, sir, is how I see it.
Equal Justice with Judge Ebony K. Williams.
Shell Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon. Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox. The Bix website is
Here, now, WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news, here, now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio on said Marcus Street. And quoting a comment from a viewer, so the Democrats admit they wanted to shut down the government. Yes, many have admitted that. Chuck Schumer did not. But let's first, before we talk more about Chuck Schumer, I've been promising this all morning long. I want to show you some great pictures from Moose Lodge, number 274. They had Wienerville, a benefit to help out the Salvation Army of Corning. And the Salvation Army of Corning does such amazing work, so it was nice that the Corning Moose Lodge raised so much for such a great cause. So let's show you some of the pictures. And let me say, it was a blast. There you go. That's what it looked like when we walked in. Some of the basket raffles. Look at all these people enjoying their hot dogs and baked potatoes. And then, oh, that's kind of cannibalism there. A hot dog, eating a hot dog. And then we have Major Anita presenting the proclamation to the Salvation Army of Corning. So we had a blast. Thank you again to the Moose Club and for helping out the amazing cause of the Salvation Army of Corning. I know everybody had a fun time that attended. All right, back to Chuck Schumer. Now, Jasmine Crockett, who has been making a name for herself lately, one of the things that she's kind of has been her shtick lately is to cuss a lot, if I'm not mistaken. She is a congresswoman out of Texas. She was on CNN's State of the Union. She said, I understand that the American people are frustrated. Please believe many of us did not sleep because we were calling and trying to impress upon the senators the importance of pushing back in this moment. This is in reference to the continuing resolution. As you saw, we had all but one Democrat in the House that voted for this. So that's 212 Democrats in the House. And then you had the vast majority of senators vote for it or vote against it as well. And so the idea that Chuck Schumer is the only one that's got a brain in the room and the only one that can think through all of the pros and cons is absolutely ridiculous. So Jake Tapper said, well, some progressive groups are calling for new leadership in the Senate for Democrats. Even House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries is your leader. He was asked if he supports Schumer as leader of the Senate Democrats. And he said, quote, next question. Do you think Senate Democrats should replace Chuck Schumer? Now, again, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett said, I think Senate Democrats have to sit down and take a look and decide whether or not Chuck Schumer is the one to lead in this moment. I definitely think that younger, fresher leadership may be something that many of us, not just depending on what part of the spectrum you're on, but many Americans may be looking for, especially in the state of New York. So Texas representative telling us what we are looking for in the state of New York, but a younger, fresher leadership. Now, calls for Chuck Schumer really for him to step down in that leadership position came right around that protest. It was an anti-Musk protest, if you recall, and he kept saying, we're going to win, we're going to win, and it was very awkward. Democrats picking on him for it as they had just lost in a landslide election just a few months before in November. It was very awkward. Many saying that he does not have it any longer, does not have the skill necessary to go after President Trump. Van Jones was asked by Aaron Burnett on CNN's Out Front, how angry are Democrats at leader Schumer? Van Jones saying, I've never seen this level of volcanic anger at a Democrat ever. Even Aaron Burnett shocked by that, saying, ever? Wow. He said, we can be grumpy. We can be frustrated with each other. There's a volcanic eruption of outrage at Leader Schumer because we want a Mitch McConnell. I remember when Obama had all the cards. Mitch McConnell drove Obama nuts, twisted his pinky, broke his kneecaps, and got stuff done for Republicans when they shouldn't have gotten an inch. They got miles. We have a Senate Majority Leader who is beloved in this party, but we want somebody who's going to stand up to this bully, do something. There's an emotional need to stop Donald Trump and Elon Musk from running over this party. And I think Chuck Schumer has radically misread the room. So Van Jones saying there's volcanic anger from Democrats at Chuck Schumer. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who many thought Kamala Harris would pick as her VP. Of course, she did not. She went with Tim Walz, and Walz now making moves to be a leader in the Democrat Party, looking to run perhaps in 2028 for president. Well, Governor Shapiro, Pennsylvania, was on Bill Maher's show on Friday. Bill Maher said Republicans proposed a budget, and Chuck Schumer said he would vote for it, and then that he wouldn't vote for it, and then he did, and got 10 Democrat senators to vote with him. The other side of the party is furious at this. AOC pretty much called him a traitor. Where do you stand on this? Did Chuck Schumer do the right thing, or is the other part of the party right? Because that is a divide in this party. We've talked about this party in the past where there's a really great opinion piece suggesting that there are two Democrats now. There are the AOC Democrats and there are the Fetterman Democrats. Well, again, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro said that he isn't an expert in D.C. issues and tries to avoid those issues and focus on Pennsylvania. And, quote, I think it's a false choice to suggest you need either or. Either you need the resistance, that fight, that opposition, or you need to find ways to compromise and come together. I think that's a false choice. I would have liked to see, when Chuck Schumer had leverage here, to say we need A, B, C, and D for the Democrat Party and force the Republicans to meet him halfway on those issues and deliver something for the folks who are worried now. So Bill Maher said, how can you force Republicans to do anything now? And Shapiro said, because they needed 8 Democrat votes in the United States Senate. I think that's a little naive. Obviously, Chuck Schumer did paint himself into a corner. We talked about it on Friday because Republicans in the House said, here's a continuing resolution. We voted on it, and see ya. We're in recess until I think it was March. Don't quote me, but I want to say March 24th maybe. So it was all or nothing. It was take the continuing resolution or be known as a party that shut the government down. Now, the MSNBC host, Michael Steele, who, remember, he was a Republican. He was actually the head of the Republican Party at one point. He is now very much anti-Trump, very much one of the Republicans that gets a lot of attention in the media because he badmouths Republicans. Well, on MSNBC's The Weekend, they unloaded on Chuck Schumer over his support for the bill that keeps the government open and avoids a shutdown, calling the move a stain and a black mark on his leadership. Michael Steele asked the panel, what are Republicans thinking right now about their ability to absolutely punk Schumer into making this move the way he did, when he knew that this is not where his party was? Schumer supported the bill on Friday, as you know. The reality here is there was no message, no strategy, and at the end of the day, no leadership. And this is really a black mark, I think, on Chuck Schumer, said Donna Edwards, former Democrat lawmaker. You cannot signal on Wednesday that you want to fight, and then on Thursday you cave. And so now Republicans know that all they have to do is play Democrats, and it will work. We'll say, angry, said Simone Sanders Townsend. There's actually little that the Senate minority leader can say, and the 10 Democrats that voted with the Republicans can say to appease somebody like me. I'm going to change my registration, to independent. Very interesting. A government shutdown was averted on Friday. We know all about that. So changing that an MSNBC host panel member, changing their party registration. They're so upset with Chuck Schumer. There's not another option for the Senate Democrats or House Democrats to effectively push back. This was it. They blew it. The Democratic Tea Party was born the same day that Chuck Schumer took to the podium to read that very well-crafted statement that told us he folded like a paper napkin, Townsend said. Anyone can primary him. Anyone, she said. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Representative Crockett, said, I think Democrats have to sit down and take a look and decide whether or not Chuck Schumer is the one to lead in this moment. We've got a little bit more on this. I'm running a little late. Oh, I see some comments coming in. Keep those comments coming. Don't forget, tomorrow there will be no live edition of Frankly Speaking because it is baseball season. And it's kicking off at 6:10 a.m. because they're playing live from Tokyo, Japan. It's the Dodgers and the Cubs. So tomorrow, no new Frankly Speaking, but that's okay. We'll enjoy watching some baseball. So get your comments in since we won't have a chance tomorrow. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Hustling, plus overbooked, plus bustling, plus cleaning overlooked. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's, relax, it's done. Plus too busy, plus bustling, plus in a tizzy. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's, relax, it's done.
Harder makes it hard to keep your home looking like the work of art you've always envisioned it would be. Culligan softeners reduce hard water buildup and your cleaning time, transforming every drop, every splash, every rinse into the fine art of a long-lasting clean. With a Culligan water softener, revel in the breathtaking beauty of your home, just the way you've always pictured it. Culligan, water you love.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We have a lot of comments coming in. We'll read those after the next segment as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio because I ran up to get some more tea and haven't had a chance to read them all. So we will get to your comments here in just a little bit. Excuse me. We're talking about Chuck Schumer. Now, the New York Post editorial board took a different tact than the Democrats on the Sunday shows. They say Chuck Schumer did right by America and the Democratic Party in keeping the government open. Senator Schumer did what he thought was right for the country and his party in avoiding a government shutdown last week. Naturally, the selfish showboaters are slamming him for it. He quite rightly saw it would be a triple loss for the Democrat Party had Senate Democrats used the filibuster to stop the bill to fund the government through September. It's interesting how they love the filibuster now, right? There's a piece that we may get to later on showing the hypocrisy of those on the left who called for the end of the filibuster, now using that filibuster or wanting to use that filibuster to shut down the government, essentially. But this is what would happen. People would get hurt as they do in any shutdown. Most voters would blame the Democrats, and a shutdown would have further empowered President Trump's drive to close agencies and fire federal workers, an effort that Schumer's progressive critics join in despising. The left's course was wrong on tactics, strategy, and its own principles. All it would have won was a chance to wallow in supposed moral purity, which it still gets to do now by denouncing Schumer. Look, the latest polling for Newsweek, and we're going to get into this a little more in depth on the program later on, and CNN shows Democrats with their lowest public approval in decades, well under 30%. Less than 1 American in 10 strongly approves of the party. Playing exclusively to that 10% can only dig Democrats into a deeper hole with everyone else. Schumer sees that. His critics either won't admit it or just don't care, calling for him to step down from that leadership position. Now, the Wall Street Journal actually called it Chuck Schumer's finest hour. Democrats are furious because he saved them from being responsible for a futile government shutdown. Without getting too much into this whole piece by the Wall Street Journal, it said, this episode reveals that Democrats haven't yet accepted their current predicament. The 60-vote filibuster rule gives them leverage in the Senate on legislation other than budget reconciliation. But they can't stop a reconciliation bill unless Republicans shoot themselves. That's the price of voter backlash against 4 years of progressive governance and pretending until the bitter end that President Biden was fit to run for another term. Mr. Schumer was complicit in those decisions, and that's what he should be held accountable for if Democrats want to show the public they are reasonable alternatives to MAGA Republicans. In this case, Mr. Schumer saved Democrats from themselves. Yes, you can imagine the pushback and the backlash that would have come from a government shutdown. I think Chuck Schumer saw that. I think Speaker Johnson did a great job of making Chuck Schumer essentially pay himself into a corner. But as we mentioned, this new CNN poll shows that the Democrat Party's favorability has dropped to a record low, with many in the party saying publicly that their leaders should do more to stand up to Trump. And this is how the media is twisting it, suggesting that the issue is they're not fighting Trump hard enough. Democrats and Democrat-aligned independents say 57% to 42% that Democrats should mainly work to stop the Republican agenda, rather than work with a GOP majority to get some Democratic ideas into legislation. Before this poll actually came out before the vote against the government shutdown, or vote for the continuing resolution, I guess is probably a better way to word that. They vote. It says here that the majority desire to fight the GOP marks a significant change in the party's posture from the start of Trump's first term. A September 2017 poll found a broad 74% majority of Democrats and Democrat leaners saying their party should work with Republicans in an attempt to advance their own priorities, and just 23% advocating for a more combative approach. Democrat-aligned adults say 52% to 48% that the leadership of the Democrat Party is currently taking the party in a wrong direction. That's another shift from 8 years ago. Now, the Democrat Party's favorability rating stands at just 29%, which is a record low in CNN's polling dating back to 1992, and a drop of 20 points since January of 2021. The Republican Party's rating currently stands at 36%, so Democrats at just 29% favorability rating. Now, again, whether it's CNN or whether it's NBC News, as in this instance, they're suggesting that this is because they're not fighting Trump hard enough. Just over a quarter of registered voters, 27%, say they have positive views of the Democrat Party, which is the party's lowest positive rating in NBC News polling dating back to 1990. Just 7% say these views are very positive. So this is a different poll. The original poll we brought to you from CNN, that the Democrat Party's favorability drops to a record low. The same with this NBC News poll, which shows just over a quarter, 27%, say they have a positive view of the Democrat Party. Jeff Horowitz, a Democrat pollster, said, with these numbers, the Democrat Party is not in need of a rebrand. It needs to be rebooted. Now, the slump is partially driven by fed-up Democrats after they watched their party lose to Trump in 2024. And now, in a reversal from Trump's first term, self-identified Democrat voters say they want their party to hold the line on their positions, even if it leads to gridlock, rather than focus on finding areas of compromise, as we mentioned earlier. Representative Pete Aguilera, a Democrat from California, said, when Donald Trump wakes up in the morning and says, "You're doing the right thing, Senate Democrats," we don't feel that is the right place to be. So the leadership taking some criticism in the Democrat Party, and again, many in the Democrat Party not happy with their party as of late. Elizabeth Joyce, a 35-year-old technology project manager from Texas, said, "I am scared that compromising will lead to the downfall of our democracy, to only be slightly hyperbolic. It's really scary seeing the things being done, the things being slashed left and right without any regard for the outcome. I think it's more important for Democrats to stick to their guns and kind of put up a fight. I mean, Trump is probably not going to listen either way, but I think there's going to be at least that would be more effective." I'm not going to go through every anecdotal story here from NBC News, but the Democrat Party hits a new polling low. They're suggesting it's because they're not doing enough to fight Trump. We're going to talk a little bit more about this when we come back. Read your comments. Oh, we got some more waves coming in too. Thank you. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Tune in to early morning broadcast. Catch our 5 and 5:30 a.m. Big Fox Morning News on WYDC, or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Every day, Judge Maybelline presides.
She doesn't know what she wants herself.
Is another day where the law is upheld.
And I'm doing that to teach you a lesson. Now, either you're going to say you did or you didn't, or I'm going to get to know real quickly that you lied.
Justice with Judge Maybelline.
Something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
It's a season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments, shall we? Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. How quickly New Yorkers forgot the disastrous way Cuomo dealt with COVID. President Trump sent the Mercy ship, also had changes made to the ventilation system of the Javits Center for 2,000 beds that Cuomo refused to use. He instead sent COVID-positive patients to nursing homes. Wake up, poor memory, New York. I agree. I think one of the most disastrous decisions ever made by an elected official, and the worst decision made during the COVID pandemic, Governor Cuomo deciding that in our most vulnerable community, in nursing homes, it was appropriate to put COVID-positive patients in there. I couldn't agree more. I can't imagine why so many people are supporting him for mayor. And remember, $60 million in your money and my money, taxpayer dollars, going to defend him against these charges of harassment because he was governor at the time. We are forced to pay for that with our taxpayer dollars, $60 million. something the media does not like to bring up very often. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Isn't it great to see the Democrats imploding? The party that gave more rights to criminals than law enforcement. The party that can't say that a male can't give birth or nurse. The party that allowed women's sports to be a spectacle with trans athletes. The party that put the green agenda above common sense and made college campuses a place to express hate. And then there's the open border. Compare Trump's bloody ear image to Pelosi ripping up Trump's speech. America has turned the page, and these are great times. Thank you very much. Another comment. Good morning. You know, with all the defiant crying the Democrats are displaying, has a silver lining if you are paying attention, in that they are clearly defining themselves and they don't look very good. Thank you very much. Jared Golden, representative, said that the Democrat Party hasn't gotten closer to a cohesive message and strategy, and cited his warning that after the inauguration, many would just shift into full resistance and stop focusing on what's getting done or where we're getting it wrong. What do we have to offer the American people, and where do we go forward from here? So Kristen Welker said, do you believe that now, 50 days into President Trump's second term, your party, the Democrat Party, is any closer to finding a cohesive message and strategy for this moment? Representative Jared Golden saying no. In fact, after the election, when a lot of people like yourself were asking me to come on shows and talk about how the party would find a new direction, a stronger message, I warned that I thought come Inauguration Day, a lot of people would move on, shift into full resistance and stop focusing on what we're getting wrong. What do we have to offer the American people, and where do we go forward from here so that we're not in this situation after the next election? I think it's very important that Democrats not forget to focus in on ourselves, why the American people voted, not just for President Trump, but for a Republican-led Congress in both the Senate and the House. And we better figure it out, how to make the case to the American people that they want us there after the 2026 election, with a House majority to offer a check on the uncontrolled Republican power that we're seeing in action today. Politico did a piece talking about the filibuster, that it once tore Democrats apart, and they're doing it all over again. Democrats blow up over funding the government isn't just triggering a fight about the future of the party. It is reopening old wounds that had hoped to move past. After the ultimately unsuccessful effort to eliminate the filibuster during former President Joe Biden's term, Royal Democrats, the party is now once again relitigating the Senate procedural move. Now, again, this is according to Politico. Democrats across the ideological spectrum have sharply criticized Minority Leader Chuck Schumer's decision Friday to break a filibuster and advance the Republican-backed stopgap funding bill, illustrating a growing divide both across the two congressional chambers and intergenerationally. Wow. Quote, this is AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, said the same Democrats who argue to keep the filibuster for when we need it do not, in fact, use it when we need it. Now, the New York Progressive was responding to a post from former Senator Kristen Sinema, who was reviled by much of the Democratic base, in part because of her opposition to eliminating the filibuster. She said, change of heart on the filibuster, I see, she told AOC. She said she felt a deep sense of outrage and betrayal at Schumer. That's what AOC had said. She included an old post where Ocasio-Cortez slammed her for supporting the filibuster, calling for Sinema to be primaried. Sinema ultimately left the Democrat Party at the end of 2022 because she broke with her party so frequently. So, again, the filibuster tearing apart the Democrat Party. Now, Doug Schoen writes for Fox News saying, I'm a lifelong Democrat. My party is failing and needs to learn from a winner. Right now, it is clear that the Democrats are at a pivotal moment, and we need to choose an agenda that genuinely addresses Americans' concerns. In the mid-1990s, when former President Bill Clinton ran for re-election, he chose an agenda that spoke to the American people, not the party's most extreme wing. It is critical that Democrats use a similar method today. First and foremost, there has to be recognition that while the electorate does want fundamental change, it is not enough to say we need to stand up to Trump and demonstrate against him. I understand the logic, but this simply does not work. Our party needs to stand for clear ideas and have an agenda reflecting a worldview that is distinctive, but not adversarial. In other words, Democrats need to show themselves as a competent alternative to the GOP, but they cannot do so if their entire agenda is one of resistance. Let's be clear, the American people want a reduction in inflation, a secure border, and a smaller, more efficient government that produces economic growth and can create jobs in other ways than increasing its own size. Clinton noted as much in 1996 when he said the era of big government is over. This concept is increasingly alien to today's Democrat Party, which is yet to which is yet to familiarize itself with the idea that the government can deliver for people without being excessively large. That being said, the American people and financial markets are clearly uncomfortable with the extreme behaviors currently coming out of this administration. And it goes on to, Doug Schoen goes on to be critical of Doge and Musk. And that goes to show you how there would never actually be a change to bureaucracy, because everyone says, yes, we need to cut back on the bureaucracy, but not this much. It's interesting, the positions that people are taking. But he goes on to mention things like the Lake and Riley Act, which a number of Democrats voted for, as being a clear example of what most people find logical and reasonable. There should be absolutely no room or leniency for criminals who are here illegally. That is not inhumane. It is the most basic level of common sense. Taken together, Democrats must realize that they're failing to provide an alternative. They're so consumed with resistance that they've been unable to muster, quote, yes, we are for smaller government, but key programs such as Medicare or Medicaid should be protected. Finally, there needs to be a sense of hope, aspiration, and commitment to stability both at home and abroad. Tariffs are fine to protect ourselves from China, but as the markets have shown, they are less okay when those policies change every few days, as we've seen with Mexico and China. I remain a Democrat, Doug Schoen says, yet I have made clear my growing concerns and frustration with my party. In order to reclaim its roots, preserve its political viability, and make voters like me proud of our party, they need to take a page from President Clinton's book and adopt his bold agenda. There you are. James Carville predicts that more Democrats will follow in Gavin Newsom's steps in speaking out on trans athletes in women's sports. That's coming from a veteran Democrat strategist, James Carville, the Raging Cajun. I think that's the view that most Americans have, he said in reaction to Gavin Newsom's interview with Charlie Kirk. I'm not that big into the state track meet, but athletic administrators can figure this out. It's not a major issue to me, and we took on a lot of water for something we weren't gonna address. All right, we better take a break. I know, running late. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Do you want a new bathroom but don't think it's in your budget? Bath Planet is now offering special financing with no payments or interest for an entire year. Sit back, relax, and we will bring the showroom to you. Our certified design team will show you hundreds of color and pattern options and work with you to build your dream bathroom with a price good for an entire year. Go with the company that people trust. Bath Planet, 2 locations serving the entirety of the Twin Tiers. Call today.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC, or visit our website at WYDC. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Some viewer comments here. Jack says, I don't think people forgot about Cuomo's past. It's the media that is conveniently forgetting. I would agree with that. They've always supported Cuomo. and they continue to do so. Comment from Ken. I am, as you know, cynical on the Democrats' tactics. I think there's a lot of play acting going on in the Democratic Party. They knew that most of the continuing resolution was the same as the one put forth by Democrats last year, and they knew that if it didn't pass, they'd be blamed for the shutdown and couldn't justify that it failed because Republicans included additional spending or cuts. So they got together and decided that Schumer will do an about-face and have enough Democrats go with him to get just over the 60-vote threshold, to get cloture and allow the actual vote. Then just enough would vote to pass the continuing resolution. Interesting that the Democrats that voted for cloture were all in solid Democrat districts. The total votes for cloture was 62. During the actual vote for the bill, up to 8 Democrats were allowed to vote against the bill. It passed with a total of 54 votes. Again, all the Democrat votes from solid Democrat districts. Thank you, Ken. James Carville, as we talk about the problems of the Democrat Party, James Carville tells liberals to get over your moral superiority. So Carville, Democrat strategist, you know that, reacted to, I don't know if you saw this news report about the reality show called Love is Blind, that a contestant, Sarah Carton, left her fiance at the altar over political differences. He told Fox News that liberals need to get over their moral superiority. Get over your preening and your moral superiority. He advised single liberals like Carton who are looking for love, adding, the more pragmatic in how you approach life, you'll end up being a lot happier and you'll actually win an election. And therefore, you can actually do things. And you could do some of the things that you want, because if you lose, it doesn't do any good. It's about nothing. That's what I would tell them. All right. Now, Democrat insiders are complaining that Kamala Harris is MIA after the election. Not the leadership the world needs. Democrat insiders are still stinging from losing the election to Donald Trump, and they view Kamala Harris as a political Where's Waldo who's gone MIA. One Democrat insider said she's MIA. The political source added Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, is telling people she's the leader of the party, but there's a clear lack of leadership. The person you just spent $2 billion trying to elect, I'm glad she's having a good time going to a musical and being repped by CAA. But this whole strategy of do not do anything or say anything, that's not the kind of leadership the world needs right now. That's true. $2 billion. She has the name recognition because of that $2 billion, but she has been relatively quiet. Another source told the New York Post that Joe Biden, who's also wrapped by a Hollywood power agency, said, I don't think bookings for them are going through the roof. The first source said that they're not a fan of Governor Newsom, who just launched a podcast, but at least he's out there doing stuff. With Harris, it shows how kind of old the thinking is. Like, well, I'm not going to run for governor for a year and a half, so I'll go away. One of her problems is that she's the most risk-averse person on the planet. That's one of the reasons she lost. There was nothing to peel the onion back for people. Another failure was Kamala Harris's avoidance of new media forums. This was such a gut punch of an election for so many Democrat donors, not to mention an expensive gut punch. A number of people I've talked to were just like, why did I burn all that money? Kamala Harris's campaign, actually, it was reported at the New York Post, or excuse me, at Fox News, that her campaign required she only be seated in chairs that met certain specifications during the campaign. So this is that idea of being risk adverse. There's a new book called Fight, Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House, and it's by Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes. It was published in The Hill. Her team required that she be provided a chair that met certain specifications. Leg height, no less than 15 inches. Floor to top of seat height, no less than 18.9 inches. Arms on chair may not be very high arms. The mandated chair specifications came following her first media interview after taking over the ticket roughly 40 days before. There you go. Enough on that. All right. We got to take our last break and then wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Tune in to our early morning broadcast. Catch our 5 and 5:30 a.m. Big Fox Morning News on WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife, Catherine.
Every Judge Mathis presides
Don't you ever form your mouth to talk to me like that. What's wrong with you?
is another day when someone gets what they deserve.
I throw you out my courtroom talking crazy like that.
Mathis Court with Judge Mathis.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are wrapping up things on today's edition of Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. So let's go through some things very, very quickly. Again, Jasmine Crockett, representative from Texas, said that the U.S. might not have elections in 2028 after branding Trump a dictator. Crockett made her remarks on Sunday morning's State of the Union on CNN. We were talking about some of the other things she said during her appearance. She's been making a name for herself by cussing a lot. Jake Tapper said, "You're close with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Some of your fellow House Democrats say, not just progressives, by the way, we've heard moderates have said this too, that they're ready to support her to challenge Chuck Schumer in a Democratic primary. Would you get behind that?" Now, the Texas Congresswoman said, "That's 4 years from now. If you were asking me at least in 2 years, then I'd have an absolute answer. But I can tell you that there are a lot of people that are watching this leadership in this moment. This is the moment. We don't even know what elections will look like in 4 years, if we will have elections." Chris Murphy on NBC's Meet the Press, Senator Chris Murphy, said Trump's actions are insidious and that he is trying to destroy the rule of law. So this, to me, is a moment where we need to be restraining the president's power, not giving him new authorities. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse says, "We are in a fight for our democracy right now." Michael Goodwin, on the other side of the coin, has a piece at the New York Post saying that Trump is putting on a master class in power politics. Going on to talk a little bit about the meltdown the Democrats are having over Chuck Schumer. That makes this a revolution, the Trump revolution. It's what he promised, and it's what he's delivering. The president is doing it by putting on a master class in the accumulation and use of power. He's commanding the airwaves and the public conversation with nonstop stream of orders, actions, and commentary. The whole world is watching the Oval Office, which has become a beehive of activity and the scene of almost daily press conferences. You can find the whole piece for yourself at the New York Post. But it says here, finally and thankfully, the stables are being cleaned out. Trump ties for the highest approval he's ever had, as more Americans say that the U.S. is on the right track than any time in 20 years, according to an NBC News poll. The bad news is that Trump still has not won over a majority of Americans, and 54% said that he disapprove of his handling of the economy, the first time he's lost a majority on that issue in an NBC poll. Even so, the survey found that voters generally feel Trump is bringing the right kind of change on the key issues, even when it comes to tariffs. Now, Mike Johnson was on Fox News Channel's Life, Liberty, and Levine, and he said, so the next big thing on our plate is the reconciliation process, and that's what we call the one big, beautiful bill. And that will be all of our campaign commitments the promises we made on the campaign trail, the big priorities of President Trump and the White House. We're going to put it all together so you'll have border security, complete funding to ensure we stay on top of that problem. We'll get back to American energy dominance again, thank goodness. That will be good for the economy and national security. We'll help to continue to restore peace and exert peace through strength. He then went on to say the Democrats seem to hate President Trump more than they love America. We are out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you to everybody who joined us. Tomorrow, tune in at 6 o'clock, not for Frankly Speaking, but for the Dodgers and the Cubs playing live from Tokyo, Japan. So we'll be back on Wednesday. Feel free to comment at any time at that number on the bottom of the screen, and we'll read those on Wednesday's program. See you on Wednesday. Have a great St. Patrick's Day, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll be back Wednesday morning starting at 6 a.m. I look forward to it already.
It's a new year, and for millions of New Yorkers, that means more money in your pocket. For the second year in a row, the minimum wage in New York State has gone up. Both this year and next, the minimum wage is increasing 50 cents per hour. That means an additional $2,000 to spend on all the things you and your family need. Then, in 2027, the minimum wage will be tied to inflation, which means increases will match costs. New York's new minimum wage, putting money directly into the pockets of New Yorkers who need it most.